Previously, on Wandering Bird Gaming. Noel was the last child to be born. He was raised as a hunter, trained to fight by Kreiss, and is heavily implied to have had romantic feelings for the Yeul of his era. After watching his friends and family die around him, Noel had no desire to kill another human being. He envisioned a world where he and Kreiss could protect Yeul together, and he held on to the belief that there could still be other humans out there. Kreiss, after seeing the rise and fall of humanity, has given in to despair and twists his view of Yeul to fit his needs. But Noel, despite growing up in the bleakest part of history, saw Yeul for who she was, and he embraced the hope that she stood for.
You don't have to cry. We will meet again.
She was smiling when she died. She believed in the future. She knew we'd meet again.
Hey everyone, Wandering Bard here, and at long last, it's finally time for me to do the Noel Kreiss character analysis. Technically, this is Noel Analysis Part 2. In my previous video on Kreiss Ballad, I discussed Noel's background and his ideals in opposition to Kreiss'. I did summarize the main points from that in the intro of this video, but if you're not super familiar, it may be worth watching the Kreiss video first. Links in the description if you're curious. In this video, I'm going to continue where I left off with Noel's character, discussing his journey through time and the continuation of his arc in Lightning Returns. There's a lot of focus on boundaries and sacrifice in his arc, which I'll be hitting on pretty heavily. His feelings for Yeul weave in and connect all of this together, which was another topic that I promised I'd talk about in this video. But before I can do that, I need to talk about this first.
Sarah, snap out of it! No! No! Sarah!
So if you go back to Let's Play videos on YouTube from around the time that this game came out, you'll see a lot of people who use this scene as the reason why they ship Sarah and Noel romantically. And I'm personally not a huge fan of that. And it's not just me being a stickler for canon. I actually don't mind the Sarah-Noel ship from Sarah's POV, and I'm going to talk about that when I do her analysis. But I'm not huge on it from Noel's side. A lot of people are quick to ship him and Sarah together because they don't find his relationship with Yeul very satisfying. But whether that's the case or not, his feelings for Yeul were central to his entire journey as a character, and in this video, I'm going to talk about why.
You don't have to cry. We will meet again.
So an interesting thing to note here, this is implied to have happened right after Kreiss broke bad, right after he left to go to Valhalla to kill XIII. This ultimately changed history, which caused Yeul to have the vision that kills her in the scene. Kreiss' plan expedited the death of this Yeul. Meanwhile, for Noel though, this came as a complete shock. He didn't know the effect that Yeul's visions had on her body. He didn't understand the burden that Kreiss was carrying, which is the same one that he would have carried had he received the Heart of Chaos from Kreiss. Now Kreiss is gone, Yeul is dying, and in her last moments, she gives Noel one comfort, which is that they'll meet again. There's a parallel you could draw between this scene and the one in Final Fantasy XIII when the party witnesses Sarah turning into a crystal, especially when you consider Noel's and Snow's reactions. In fact, there's a lot of similarities you could draw between Noel and Snow, which Noel wouldn't be too happy to hear about. But there's a key difference between them. In Final Fantasy XIII, when Snow clung to Sarah's last words as proof that their focus was to protect Cocoon, his faith wasn't based in any kind of logic. In fact, all logic seemed to go against him. Snow was like that a lot at first. A relentless optimist, but his optimism was usually unfounded, which drove characters like Lightning and Noel up the wall. But in Noel's case, when he held on to Yeul's promise that they'd meet again, it wasn't just a pipe dream. As Lumina correctly pointed out in Lightning Returns, Yeul was the Seeress, blessed by XIII, meaning if she saw a future where they were together again, then it had to be true. He basically had no choice but to believe in a happy ending, and even with that, he didn't fully comprehend the idea until he met Lightning. And then he met Sarah and her friends in New Bodom.
I had a dream, but I didn't think it all out. I didn't know what it really meant. But once I got here and saw how you and your friends live in this village, I knew my dream could come true.
It wasn't until this moment that he really comprehended the future he wanted. But now he not only has hope from Yeul that it's possible, but he has a charge from Lightning to bring Sarah to her and assurance from her that yes, if he does this, he can indeed change the future. And so the question for Noel as he goes on his journey isn't, can I get the ending that I want, because he's already convinced that he can. The question is, what am I willing to sacrifice to get the ending that I want? And that's a question he has to answer through his entire journey.
And you should know you can't provoke me. No matter how hard you try, I'm not going to kill you.
That's right. You hate to kill anyone, don't you? Noel, born at the end of days. You understand the true value of life.
I talked a bit about this during the Kreiss video, but Noel does have lines that he's not willing to cross as he chases his new future. Notably, he's not willing to take a human life. He lived at the end of days, he saw people, friends, die around him, and so he's willing to kill monsters in order to survive, but he will not kill another human. And one thing I actually didn't realize until I was playing the script is that we don't really battle other humans in Final Fantasy XIII-2. In the first game, there were droves of Sanctum troops the party had to cut down during their time as l'Cie. But in this game, the only human opponent that we have is Kreiss, and yeah, don't worry about it. The other thing, though, is that Noel has boundaries that are specific to the people he loves, which at first is just Yeul. Things get complicated a bit, though, by the fact that his time traveling has given him a mild case of amnesia. And I do mean a mild one. He still remembers and freely reminisces about his life on Grand Pulse, and he very much remembers Yeul and Kreiss. But he had forgotten the details about how Yeul died, which included her promise that they'd meet again. So for the first half of his journey with Sarah, Yeul actually acts as a source of confusion and angst for Noel rather than a source of hope, as he tries to sort through his memories. One thing he doesn't forget, however, is Yeul's mission to protect the timeline, and that's something he stands by very firmly. And for him, going through history and resolving the paradoxes is part of that mission, because history has clearly been tampered with. But the most important moment for this is when they reach academia for the first time, and they're accused by Kreiss of being a living paradox, a contradiction in history. The Kreiss who accused them is later revealed to be fake, but for a time Sarah and Noel genuinely wondered whether they could be part of the problem plaguing the timeline. When they next see Yeul in Augusta Tower, they ask her why she's choosing to help them, even though they're changing history. And it's her reassurance that no, history was already broken, and yes, you are doing the right thing by resolving paradoxes. That's what encourages them to keep going. And in around all of this, he does grow close to Sarah as well. At first, their relationship was born purely out of Lightning's mission. Find my sister, bring her to me, and together you can change the future. But they do grow close as they travel through time, which is both great and risks being terribly unhealthy if their relationship is only based on shared danger. But it goes beyond that. He's able to be vulnerable to her about Yeul, and she in turn respects his boundaries when he's not willing to talk about something. He also never tries to come between her and Snow. In fact, even as Snow aggravates him, he encourages Sarah to be with him, to spend more time with him, because he knows from experience how quickly you can lose the people you love. He genuinely cares for her, and so he comes to another line he's not willing to cross after she rescues him from his dream world. After reliving his past, Noel remembers what happened to Yeul, that the gift of prophecy puts a terrible strain on the body, and each vision shortens the series' lifespan until she dies. Sarah, who's been given the same gift, has been seeing visions each time they change history, and risks death if she continues her journey. In that moment, after realizing all of this, Noel was prepared to abandon his quest to change the future, considering it to not be worth it if he loses another person he cares about. And Sarah is the one who has to push him to keep going. What's even more heartbreaking is that he later admits that he was having regrets about Yeul, about caring for her. His whole life was devoted to becoming Yeul's guardian, only for her to die before his eyes. Now he's on a mission to prevent that future from happening, and right now all he can see is that his mission puts another person he loves at risk. And he's so close here to going down a similar road to where Lightning once was, and where Kreiss is now, which is to believe that there's no point in caring if caring just leads to more loss. And that's a hard thing for anyone to deal with. But thankfully the dream world didn't just have bad memories for Noel.
Yeul saw the future that Noel fights to protect. She believed that someday they would see each other once more.
You don't have to cry. We will meet again.
Noel's arc throughout this journey begins and ends with Yeul. She gives him strength to travel through time at first, and then causes him confusion and angst when his memories become unreliable, and when he meets other Yeuls across the timeline. But finding that moment with his Yeul is what gives him the resolve to continue, to believe that the future he longs for is still possible. And this is why I personally don't agree that their relationship isn't satisfying, because it's woven so deeply into his characterization. Like, does Noel love Sarah? Does he care about her deeply? Of course he does, that's obvious throughout the game. It'd be impossible to go on an adventure like that with someone and not care deeply for them. Would Noel have developed feelings for Sarah if he hadn't lived in a time where him, Yeul, and Kreiss were the only people left in existence? Maybe, we don't know. But as much as he and Sarah cared deeply for each other, they always had lives and priorities outside of each other. And that's accentuated by this scene right after Noel was forced to kill Kreiss.
I'm going to find her. Find my Yeul. It doesn't have to be forever.
For one thing, I want to say that this scene is so good because even though they've won their battle, there's no fanfare, there's no celebration here. Kreiss literally forced Noel to break his most important rule, which was to not kill. So of course he's not happy. But the other reason I wanted to play this scene is that it shows how Sarah and Noel at the end of Final Fantasy XIII-2 are in very different places emotionally. As far as Sarah is concerned, she's done. She beat Kreiss, she saved the future or so she thinks, and she also thinks the Lightning is now waiting for her back home. But Noel isn't there yet. Yes, they beat Kreiss, but his mission was always to be with Yeul again. And that hasn't happened yet. And then the world goes to absolute crap, Sarah dies, and Noel feels personally responsible for all of it. And he has to brood on that for about 500 years.
Damn it, but we were fools back then. We might as well have spat in the wind the good it did. I'd already signed the world's death warrant. 5 short centuries, that's all we had. And now even that's gone.
After being unable to stop the spread of chaos, Noel eventually ends up in XIII, where Lumina shows him an Oracle Drive recording, which claims that his destiny is to kill Lightning and thereby bring about a new world. The timeline here is a little iffy because according to Vanille, Lumina first appeared when she and Fang awoke from Crystal, which was about 487 years after the world first drowned in chaos. So by the time Lightning awakens as the savior, Noel has had at most 13 years to consider this prophecy. Not a long time in the grand scheme of 500 years, but enough time to brood, especially when compounded with centuries of guilt. When we actually meet Noel in XIII, he's not broken with grief the way Snow is, but we can see how much the years have changed him. He's angrier now, and during the battle with the children of XIII, he shows himself willing to kill, which he never had been before. He's still following a kind of code here, the people he's killing are all murderous fanatics, but he is now willing to kill, and he acts more than willing to kill Lightning. There's a bit of in-game debate here as to why Noel is so determined on this prophecy. Lightning questions whether this is him wanting revenge on her for putting the burden of history on his shoulders, or whether he's scared to try and change the future after failing to do so before. Noel himself says this isn't personal at all, and that he wishes the prophecy didn't involve Lightning dying. He didn't even put any stock in that prophecy for a long time after seeing it because he never thought Lightning would actually come back. He thought Kreiss had killed her. But the prophecy shows him and Yeul reunited after he kills Lightning, and he believes that's what has to happen, even if he hates it.
One more death on my conscience won't do anything to me. It has to be done!
You can't escape! Don't even try.
I need this.
Time to disappear! You want Good luck. I've got you cornered now! Savior's got a job. Your dream is over, Noel. Let it go. The Hunter has failed to kill the Savior. Your prophesized future won't come true. It's all over now.
You think I'll give up that easy, Savior? I'm not done yet. I am going to kill you.
You know, I'll be honest and say that the writing in this scene is not my favorite. I found a lot of the dialogue to be really clunky and repetitive, but I think it's easier to take all of that in if you consider that throughout this whole encounter, Noel is still trying to convince himself that this is the right thing to do. Because he genuinely doesn't want this. He wants a future with Yeul, but this isn't how he wanted to get it. And it's not until the moment of crisis that he realizes that if he goes through with this, he'll be crossing a line not just with Yeul, but with himself. He was literally forced to kill Kreiss, and when he fought the children of XIII, he was trying to protect innocent people from being slaughtered. But if he, out of rage or desperation, had killed Lightning, he would have lost himself. And in that moment before striking, he realized that.
Noel, you did the right thing. Your soul will come to me. We'll meet again, sooner than you think. I promise.
Yeul once again turns out to be Noel's hope and salvation. And the worst part is, this almost didn't work out. At the end of Lightning Returns, they were almost separated again, when Yeul was going to stay with Kreiss to take the place of XIII and keep the cycle of life and death flowing. He ran after her, calling out to her, and even offered to die in her place so she could live in the new world. He was willing to sacrifice himself for her, which I think for Kreiss pulled up a mirror to how he used to be back when he was still the devoted guardian. He released Noel's Yeul from the fate of the Seeress and allowed them both to live at peace in the new world together. This could never have happened if Lightning hadn't been able to defeat Bunavelza, which does raise the question as to what exactly the Oracle Drive recording was showing. The images could have just been corrupted by chaos, but my personal theory is that had he killed Lightning, a new world would have been created but on Bunavelza's terms, with humankind replaced by soulless husks. The Noel and Yeul in that vision, therefore, weren't actually them. After all, as Hope pointed out, those were just images. There was no way to see the hearts of the people in them. And Noel came very close to losing his heart, his very identity, after suffering from the guilt of destroying the world. But he finds himself again by holding on to what's most important to him. And thus ends the Noel analysis. We just have one video to go before we've analyzed every member of the main cast from the 13 trilogy. But I still have plenty of other content planned for both Final Fantasy XIII and other games in the series, so be sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell if you want to see all of that as it comes out. Thank you so much for watching, I really hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Light? How did you know he was gonna do that? I was sure he was about to kill you. Did you sense something?
I didn't know. I took a gamble on him and hoped he'd come up with the right answer. Lucky for us, he did.